Mr. Wade here. I drove a little distance to come to a cemetery out here in Camas, Washington. Now, I'm here to give you a story on two brothers. Now, about a couple weeks ago, I did a relapse video on a female that these two brothers had murdered out here in Vancouver, Washington. So we're going to visit the graves of the two murderees that were eventually hanged at the Walla Walla prison over in Washington County, over here in Washington State. So we're going to revisit their graves, and we're going to revamp their story on what led up to what they did and what led up to how they were actually killed by the state, of course, for their murderers. Stay tuned. So as we walk over to their cemetery plots, remember these two, Ermin, and I think the other guy's name start with a T. I'm going to post their names, but just know that they were responsible for the murder of the female that I will post on here, and we recently revisited her earlier, 2 weeks ago. The video's up, check that out. And they were here because they actually killed this female and took off to another state. Wow. So we are walking up to their thing right now. So here we are. This is Mr. Utah E. Wilson, 1930 to 1953. And this is Mr. Terman G. Wilson, 1926 to 1953. So let me break it down to you. These two brothers, they seen this one particular female, and they were out in the Portland area. Now, as I understand from reading the story, that she was actually kind of bewildered. He walked up to her, and they tried to personally abduct her into the vehicle. Now, during all this struggling, people stood by and just said, wow, what's going on? Why is she screaming? Why is she fighting? And they finally got her into the vehicle. Now, they drove off with her, took her off over here to Vancouver, Washington area, and they did what they did to her. They beat her. They beat her bad. Now, upon the beating, what could I say? She fought back, as they stated. Now, she fought back. She struggled from what the police discovered, the investigation. She fought back. She struggled. Of course, they ended up killing her. Now, they took her naked body after they did whatever they did to her, as far as killing her, raped her, beat her, and everything else. And they threw her body over an embankment into a riverbed. Now, she was found sometime later by two people that were actually hiking in that area, and they actually found her nude, strangled, beat body. Now, you got the two brothers that tried to flee from the area. They end up leaving to California. They both took off, left the vehicle behind. Now, what caught them was that they had fingerprints. They had fingerprints on a bottle of beer or alcohol. Now, on this bottle of beer was one of the brothers' fingerprints. Fingerprints always lead up to something, right? So they found the fingerprints on one of the brothers. So they found the location of where they stayed at. They had a home out here in Camas, Washington, that they lived with their mother, father. Now the father, he has been locked up as well. So it's been a history of criminal activity in the family. But they traced it back to there, and they end up talking to one of the brothers of the two brothers. Now, he had a wife, of course, as well, but he was very kind of like he didn't want to tell where they went. He didn't want to tell his brothers, but eventually he ended up telling on both of the brothers. Now that the brother told on the other two brothers, that eventually fled off to California. Now they're in California trying to reposition themselves, trying to make different names, trying to do what all murderers do. I'm going to hide the fact that I did this, but I want to make sure nobody knows who I am, so I'm going to be a new alias. Now he ended up telling the FBI about where the location was. He stated that they left to go see their father. Now maybe their father once lived in another state, but where they went to, they tried to get away. Okay. So the fingers were definitely pointing at, hey, you guys are alibiing for your brothers, and obviously these two went to California, so we're going to eventually catch them. Right. So with media attention and the news, they end up locating the brothers. They flew out there on a plane, they found the brothers, they arrested the brothers, and they brought them back out here to Vancouver, Washington for booking. Now, did it go well? Possibility. But they brought him out here and they was tried for the murder of the female. So let's just say that they went to trial for this murder case. And let's say to this day in history, this case here, this murder trial, was the only case in history that has ever been released, revamped, tried in court, which means is they kept getting acquittals. This case here had the most acquittals of any other case in murder history. They kept getting the acquittals. They kept saying, hey, they did it, they didn't do it. Not enough evidence, not enough this. But they still retained the two brothers. Now the case prolonged so much media attention that they had a group of individuals that actually were siding on the behalf of the two brothers, saying they did not do this murder. Why are you guys doing this? Why are they being tried for death? Why are they this and that? So they had backing. But of course, after so many acquittals, so many retries of the court trial and the murder case, they ended up playing that they're going to be put to death by hanging, of course. Now, these two brothers had backing by the group of individuals that I mentioned earlier about. They were backing them, saying they did not do this. Now, up until the time they actually walked up to the platform to be hanged, there were numerous calls stating, hold off on it, hold off on it, go with it, hold off. The judge ended up saying, we're going to go through with this. So, 1953, that was the date. If I stated right, I posted it here. That was the date they were both hanged by the Washington prison, Walla Walla. Now, they were placed out here. Now, in the placing of being put out here with a headstone, they stated that the statement was that once the two sons, the brothers, family, friends, whatever, said once they're being placed out here in the cemetery out here in Cambridge, Washington, we request that on the headstone, can we put the two innocent men that were unrightfully hanged. They wanted to place that on there. I'm going to put what they actually wanted on there because Mr. Wade is bad with words, right? Sometimes. But they wanted to put that phrase on the headstone. And guess what? It was denied by the police. By the judge. The judge said, no, we're going to put statement everybody puts on their headstone. They were not innocent, but they tried to fight for that and they couldn't do it. Wow. So these two brothers, Utah and Thurman, were both guilty of murdering the said female that's in this video, that's in prior videos, made headlines, and they got it acquitted. They got the court case acquitted more times than any other murder case in history today. But it all came out. I hope you guys enjoyed this unfortunate story of the two brothers that murdered this female victim and tried to get away with the actual murder and tried to make a whole new life in another state. Thank you to all subscribers out there. Hit that like button. Always know Mr. Wade and Mrs. Crime brings the videos to you. Stay tuned for a lot more from Tombstone Whispers.